I never imagined that the happiest day of my life would turn into a nightmare. My wedding was supposed to be the day when everything I had dreamed of finally came true. I had met the love of my life, Tyler, and we had planned every detail of our special day for months. The dress, the venue, the guests, all of it was supposed to be perfect. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened when I walked down that aisle. I'll never forget the look on my family's faces as I stood there, in front of everyone, ready to marry the man I loved. My heart was racing, not with excitement, but with fear. Fear of what was about to happen. I could feel the tension in the air, the uneasy silence that surrounded me. My parents, my siblings, they all looked so different, so distant. I had spent my entire life trying to please them, trying to meet their expectations. But now it seemed like they were all silently judging me. It started with my mother. She looked at me like I was making the biggest mistake of my life. I could see the disapproval in her eyes, the silent judgment she had never voiced until now. And then there was my father. He wasn't even looking at me. His gaze was fixed on the floor, his arms crossed, as if he were in a standoff. My heart sank, and I wondered if this was really happening. I had always imagined my wedding day being filled with love and joy, but now it felt like a battleground. As I stood there, frozen, waiting for the ceremony to begin, the whispers started. My cousin, who had always been my closest friend, glanced at me with a look of disbelief. My aunts and uncles exchanged quiet words behind their hands, their eyes flicking between me and Tyler. I felt exposed, like I was under a microscope. The judgment was palpable, suffocating. And then it happened. My brother, who had always been my protector, stood up. His voice broke through the murmur of the crowd, cold and full of accusation. Mila, do you really think this is the right choice? You're making a huge mistake. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. The words hit me like a slap in the face. I had never expected him to say something like that, especially not in front of everyone. It wasn't just a criticism, it was a public condemnation of my entire relationship. My stomach twisted, but I kept my composure, forcing myself to stand tall. I couldn't let this break me. But then my mother joined in. I agree with him, Mila. You've always made poor decisions, and this is no different. This isn't the life we envisioned for you. The sting of her words cut deeper than anything I had ever heard from her. She had always been my biggest supporter, or so I thought. But here she was, turning her back on me when I needed her the most. Tyler's hand on mine tightened, but even his calm presence couldn't ease the growing panic inside me. I felt my world crumbling. My family, the people who were supposed to be there for me, had turned against me. It was supposed to be my day, the start of a new chapter, but instead it felt like my entire life was being dissected in front of a crowd. I had never felt more alone. I could hear Tyler whispering, his voice soothing, but it didn't matter. The damage had been done. My family had made their choice, and I had made mine. But I was no longer going to let them dictate my life, especially on my wedding day. It was my choice, my moment, and I was done letting them control me. I wasn't going to let them ruin my day. Not today. Not on the most important day of my life. And that's when I made my decision. I stood there, frozen, the weight of my family's judgment pressing down on me. My heart raced in my chest, but the anger began to burn through the fear. This was my wedding, I had spent so much of my life trying to please my family, trying to be the perfect daughter, the perfect sister, and now I was done. I had chosen Tyler, and he was the one who had always supported me. No one, not even my family, could take that away from me. As my brother's words echoed in my mind, I took a deep breath and looked directly at him. He was standing there, waiting for me to react, his eyes filled with disappointment. I had always been the one who caved in, the one who tried to keep the peace. But not today, not anymore. I wasn't going to stand there and let them tear me down in front of all our friends and family. I turned to Tyler, who was standing beside me, his face filled with concern but also with determination. His hand squeezed mine once again, and I saw the trust and love in his eyes. "Mila," he whispered, "this is your moment. Don't let them take it from you." His words were like a spark in my chest, lighting a fire I hadn't known was there. I wasn't going to let anyone ruin this for me. Not my brother, not my mother, and not anyone else. This was about my future, about the life I had chosen for myself, with Tyler by my side. And just like that, I made a decision. I wasn't going to play the role they wanted me to play anymore. I wasn't going to let them manipulate me or guilt trip me or make me feel like I was making a mistake when I wasn't. This was my life, my wedding, and I was going to take control of it. I wasn't going to let anyone, least of all my own family, take that away from me. I turned to face the crowd, my eyes scanning the faces of my relatives, all of them waiting for my next move. They had expected me to crumble. They had expected me to break, to give in to their expectations. But instead, I stood taller, my back straight and my chin raised. I wasn't going to let their words affect me anymore. "Everyone," I said, my voice clear and loud, "I know there are some of you who don't approve of my decision. I know there are those who think I'm making a mistake, but I'm not asking for anyone's approval. I'm not asking for anyone's permission. This is my life, and Tyler is the man I've chosen to spend it with. No one, not even my own family, will take that from me." I felt the room go quiet. I could see the surprise on their faces, and for the first time, I didn't care. I was done with trying to please them. I had made my choice, and I was going to live with it, no matter what anyone else thought. My brother looked like he was about to say something, but I didn't give him the chance. "If you truly love me, you'll respect my decision," I continued, my voice steady and strong. "If you can't do that, then maybe it's time for us to reconsider what family means." I could feel the tension in the room shifting. Some of my relatives looked uncomfortable, but others seemed to be reconsidering their stance. It was clear that they hadn't expected me to stand up for myself, to fight back. They thought I would just fold under pressure, but they had underestimated me. As I finished speaking, I turned to Tyler, giving him a small smile. "Let's do this," I whispered, and without another word we turned to the officiant, ready to continue with the ceremony. The rest of the ceremony was a blur, but it wasn't filled with the anxiety I had expected. It was filled with confidence, with strength. For the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about what anyone else thought. I was doing this for me and for Tyler, and that was all that mattered. When we exchanged our vows and said, "I do," it felt like the world had shifted. It wasn't just the beginning of our marriage. It was the beginning of my independence. I had taken control of my life, of my future, and I wasn't going to let anyone stand in my way. But as I walked down the aisle with Tyler, hand in hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The fight wasn't over yet. My family had made their feelings clear, and I knew they wouldn't give up so easily. There would be more challenges, more confrontations, but for the first time, I was ready for them. I wasn't the same person I had been when I first walked down the aisle. I was stronger now, more certain of who I was and what I wanted. And nothing, not my family, not anyone, was going to take that away from me. After the ceremony, I thought the worst was behind me. I had stood up to my family. I had made my vows. And now I was married to Tyler, the man I loved. It should have been the happiest moment of my life, but the truth was, the battle had only just begun. My family, still reeling from my public defiance, wasn't about to let me off the hook that easily. As we left the venue and headed toward our honeymoon, I couldn't escape the feeling that something was off. Tyler could see it in my eyes, but I tried to brush it off. I was supposed to be celebrating after all. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that my mother and brother were not going to let this go quietly. They would find a way to get back at me, to show me the consequences of defying them. We had barely made it to the hotel before my phone buzzed. I looked at the screen and saw that it was my mother. A pang of anxiety hit me in the pit of my stomach. I didn't want to answer. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. But Tyler gently nudged me, a silent encouragement for me to take the call. I hesitated, then pressed the button to answer. "Chloe," my mother's voice came through, cool and composed, but there was an unmistakable undercurrent of anger. "We need to talk." "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I don't think now is the time." "Well, I do," she snapped. "You think this is over, don't you? You think that by marrying him, you've won some kind of battle. But you've only started a war. And if you think you can just walk away from your family like this, you're mistaken." The words stung, but I refused to let her see the effect they had on me. "You don't get to control me anymore, Mom," I said, my voice firm, but my heart racing. "I've made my choice. Tyler is my husband, and I'm not going to apologize for that." "You're a fool," she hissed. "You think he's going to stand by you when everything falls apart? You think you're the one he'll choose when things get tough? You don't know what you're getting yourself into." I could feel my anger rising. "I don't need you to tell me what's best for me," I said, my words clipped. "I'm done being your puppet, Mom. I'm living my life the way I want to. You can either accept it or not." There was a long silence on the other end, and I thought maybe she was done. But then she spoke again, her voice dripping with venom. "You'll regret this, Mila. Mark my words. You can't just cut me out of your life without facing the consequences." I ended the call abruptly, feeling the tension in my body ease just slightly as the connection cut off. Tyler was sitting beside me, his hand gently resting on mine. "What did she say?" he asked, his concern evident. "She's angry," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "She's not going to let this go. She said I'll regret it." Tyler squeezed my hand. "Don't listen to her, Mila. You've made the right choice, and we'll handle whatever comes next, together." But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that my mother wasn't finished. She had always been controlling, and now that she had lost her grip on me, she would find another way to regain control. It wasn't just about Tyler anymore. It was about power, and she wouldn't stop until she had it back. That night, as we lay in bed, I thought about everything my mother had said. "You'll regret this. You can't just cut me out of your life. She was right about one thing. This wasn't going to be easy. If I thought this was just a fight about a wedding day, I was wrong. This was about a lifetime of manipulation, control, and familial expectations. It wasn't just about me and Tyler anymore. It was about breaking free from everything my family had taught me about loyalty and obligation. And then, as if I hadn't already had enough to worry about, the next day brought even more chaos. I woke up to find that my brother had called, over and over again. He was relentless. He left me a voicemail after voicemail, each one more forceful than the last. "Mila," he began in one of them, his voice full of frustration. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life. You've turned your back on us, and you don't even realize the damage you've done." I listened to it all, my stomach churning. I couldn't believe this was happening. This wasn't just about me choosing Tyler. It was about my brother feeling betrayed. It was about my family not being able to accept that I had grown up and made my own choices. I didn't know how much longer I could handle this constant pressure. But one thing was clear. I was never going to back down. I had taken control of my life, and no matter how hard they pushed, I wasn't going to let them take it back. The constant barrage of messages from my mother and brother had made it impossible to ignore the reality of the situation. As much as I wanted to focus on my new life with Tyler, every time I picked up my phone, there was another message waiting, another reminder that my family was refusing to accept my choices. They had been a part of my life for so long, and now that I had chosen a different path, they were treating me like I had betrayed them. The guilt, the pressure, it was overwhelming at times. But as much as it hurt, I knew I had to stay strong. I had made my decision, and I wasn't going to let their manipulation tear me down. Tyler, always my rock, could see the toll it was taking on me. He had been patient, supportive, and loving through it all, but I could tell it was wearing on him too. He had never asked me to choose between him and my family. He knew how important family was to me, but he also knew how toxic they could be. He had seen the way they treated me, the subtle jabs, the criticisms, the manipulation, and he didn't want that for me, for us. But still, the tension in the air between us was palpable. I didn't want to bring him into the mess my family had created, but it was clear that it was becoming impossible to shield him from it any longer. One evening, after dinner, Tyler turned to me, his expression serious. "Mila, I know you're trying to protect me from all of this, but it's not just about you anymore. It's about us. We can't keep ignoring the way your family is treating you, treating us. You can't keep carrying all of this by yourself." His words hit me harder than I expected. I knew he was right, but the thought of dragging him deeper into the conflict made my stomach turn. I had promised myself that I would shield him from the fallout, that I would protect him from the chaos my family had created. But the truth was, it was no longer just my battle. It was our battle. I nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. "I don't know what to do, Tyler. Every time I think we're making progress, my family comes at me again. It's like they think I'm supposed to choose between them and you. But I don't know how to make them see that it's not about that. It's about my life. Our life." Tyler's hand reached out, gently cupping my face. "I know, Mila. And I'm not going anywhere. But we can't let them keep controlling us, keep controlling you. It's time for you to stand up to them for good, to make them see that you're not going to let them tear us apart." The weight of his words sank in. He was right. I had already fought so hard for my independence, for my happiness. I had already taken back control of my life in the most dramatic way possible, but now it was time for the final step. It was time to confront my family once and for all and make it clear that I was done living in their shadow. They couldn't control me anymore, and they couldn't control my marriage. I spent the next few days gathering my thoughts, figuring out exactly what I needed to say. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. My family wasn't going to just accept my choices with open arms, not after everything that had happened. But I had to do this. For myself, for Tyler, for our future. I reached out to my mother first. I knew it was going to be the hardest conversation, but it had to happen. She answered the phone on the second ring, her voice clipped and cold. "Mila," she said, as though she had been expecting my call. "I assume you want to continue this nonsense about your marriage?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "Mom, I've made my decision. I love Tyler, and I'm married to him now. I'm not going to keep apologizing for that. You've tried to control me for so long, but I'm done. I'm not asking for your approval anymore." There was silence on the other end, and for a moment, I wondered if she was even going to respond. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "You think you know what's best for you, Mila. You think you can just throw everything away for him? You've made a mistake, and I'm not going to stand by and watch you ruin your life." Her words hurt, but they also fueled my fire. I wasn't going to let her have the power anymore. "This isn't about you, Mom. It's about me, about what I want, and I'm done letting you control me. I'm living my life the way I see fit. You can either accept that or stay out of it." For the first time, I heard her break, her voice faltering slightly. "I don't know how to let go, Mila." I paused, letting the silence settle between us. "It's not about letting go of me, Mom. It's about letting go of control. I'm my own person now." The conversation ended shortly after, neither of us saying much more. But I knew that this was the beginning of something. It wasn't the end of my family's expectations, but it was the first step toward freedom. I had taken back control. I had done it for myself, for my marriage, and for the life I had chosen. After my conversation with my mother, I thought I might finally have a sense of relief. It wasn't the heartwarming resolution I had hoped for, but I had taken the first step in cutting the ties that had held me back for so long. My mother's response had been filled with anger and frustration, but also a strange, quiet vulnerability. I had said what needed to be said, and for the first time, I felt a sense of empowerment. I had stood up for myself, and it felt like I had finally reclaimed my voice. But then came the next challenge: my brother. If I thought confronting my mother was hard, I wasn't prepared for what my brother had in store. It wasn't just about family loyalty for him, it was about control, and I could already feel the weight of his expectations looming over me. My brother had always been the one to protect me, to try to fix everything when I felt like my world was falling apart. But I had seen how his protective nature turned into something else, something suffocating. He had always been the one who expected me to stay in line, to follow the path he and my parents had set for me. The day after my conversation with my mother, I received a text from my brother. It was short, almost cold. "We need to talk." I knew what that meant. I braced myself for another confrontation. I wasn't sure if I was ready for it, but I knew I couldn't avoid it any longer. I had already made my choices, and it was time to face the consequences head on. I agreed to meet him at a cafe. When I arrived, I found him sitting in a corner booth, his arms crossed, his expression tight. The air between us was thick with unspoken tension. As I sat down across from him, I could feel his eyes on me, full of disbelief and frustration. "You really think this is the right thing to do, Mila?" he asked, his voice low and controlled. "You think you can just walk away from everything we've worked for? From the family?" I took a deep breath. "I'm not walking away from the family, Alex. I'm walking away from the control, from the expectations that have been placed on me my whole life. This is my life, and I'm not going to let anyone dictate it anymore." He scoffed, shaking his head. "You think you're being strong, don't you? You think you're doing the right thing, but you're not. You're throwing everything away for him." His voice shook with emotion now. "You're going to regret this, Mila. You have no idea what you're getting into." I could feel the anger bubbling inside me. I had always tried to make him proud, always tried to follow the path he had carved out for me. But no more. "I've been living for everyone else's approval for too long, Alex," I said, my voice steady but firm. "It's not about him. It's about me. I'm making my own decisions, and for once, I'm not apologizing for it." He leaned forward, his face tight with emotion. "You're my sister. I'm trying to protect you, but you're blinded by your emotions. He's not going to protect you like we do. He's not going to be there when things get tough." I could feel the weight of his words, but I wasn't going to let him manipulate me anymore. "You've been protecting me for so long, Alex, that you've forgotten how to let me live my own life. I'm not a child anymore. I don't need your protection, and I don't need your approval." The silence between us felt suffocating. He stared at me for a long moment, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite read. Disappointment, perhaps, or maybe fear. But I wasn't backing down. This was my moment, and I wasn't going to let him or anyone else make me feel guilty for the choices I had made. Finally, Alex spoke again, his voice quieter, more resigned. "I can't stop you, Mila, but I can't watch you make this mistake. I just want you to understand that you're not alone in this. You're not the only one who's been hurt by this." His words lingered in the air, heavy and full of meaning. I wanted to reach out, to tell him that I understood, that I knew this wasn't easy for him either. But I didn't. I had already made my decision, and I had to stay true to it. "I'm not making a mistake, Alex," I said softly but firmly. "I'm living my life the way I want to, and I'm not going to apologize for it." He stood up, his jaw clenched tight. "I hope you know what you're doing." Then, without another word, he walked away, leaving me alone in the cafe. I sat there for a long moment, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. I had expected this fight with my brother, but it didn't make it any easier. It felt like I was losing pieces of my past, pieces of my family, every time I stood up for myself. But I couldn't stop. I had to keep moving forward. I wasn't going to let anyone hold me back. Not my mother, not my brother, not anyone. This was my life, and I was taking control. After my conversation with Alex, I thought that maybe the worst was behind me. I had stood up to my mother, confronted my brother, and asserted my independence. I had made it clear that I wasn't going to let them control my life anymore. I thought that maybe, just maybe, they would back off and let me live my life in peace. But I couldn't have been more wrong. The following week, Tyler and I decided to take a much-needed break from the chaos. We went on a small getaway to a nearby beach town, just the two of us, to reconnect and focus on our future. It was a peaceful escape, a rare moment of calm amid the storm. For a while, I managed to forget about everything, about my family's disapproval, the constant pressure, the guilt. But as much as I tried to push it all aside, the reality of my family's refusal to accept my choices continued to hang over me. I woke up one morning to an unexpected phone call from Tyler. His voice was urgent, filled with concern. Mila, you need to check your email. Something's happened. My stomach dropped. The last time I had heard that tone in his voice, it had meant trouble. I pulled out my phone and opened my inbox, and what I saw nearly made my heart stop. It was an email from my mother, a forwarded message, a photo. The photo was of me and Tyler from our wedding. It was a candid shot, taken during the ceremony, with the two of us exchanging vows. But what made the photo so shocking wasn't just the image itself. It was the email she had sent along with it. This is a mistake, Mila. You've chosen the wrong man, and you're making a fool of yourself. The family will never accept this. You've broken our hearts. I stared at the email, the words echoing in my mind. My mother had sent this photo to everyone in the family. She was actively trying to turn them against me, to manipulate them into believing that I had made a mistake. I had always known she was controlling, but this was a new level. She wasn't just trying to tear apart my relationship with her. She was trying to destroy my entire family's view of me. I felt my anger rising, but beneath it, there was a deep sense of betrayal. My mother had always been my biggest supporter, or so I thought. She had always said she just wanted what was best for me. But now I saw that what she really wanted was control. She wanted me to follow her rules, to live my life the way she thought was best. And if I didn't, she would make sure that my family would never forgive me. I could feel Tyler's hand on my shoulder as he stood behind me, reading the email over my shoulder. Mila, she's doing this out of spite, he said, his voice full of quiet fury. She's trying to tear us apart. I nodded, my eyes brimming with tears. I thought she would just accept it eventually. I thought she'd come around. But now I know this is something deeper. She's never going to let go. She's never going to accept me making my own choices. I felt lost, unsure of what to do. I had already confronted her once, but this was a new level of manipulation. She was using our wedding photos, our most intimate moments, as tools to tear me down. But then something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to let her keep doing this to me. I wasn't going to let her control my life any longer. If she wanted a fight, I was going to give it to her. I had already made the decision to stand up for myself, to take control of my own future. And I wasn't going to back down now. I looked at Tyler, my resolve hardening. We need to confront her, Tyler. This ends now. He nodded, his face determined. Whatever you need, Mila. We'll do it together. I didn't know exactly what I was going to say, but I knew I had to call her. It was time to put an end to this once and for all. I wasn't going to let her tear me down, not anymore. I took a deep breath and dialed her number. The phone rang once, then twice. On the third ring, she picked up. I could hear the coldness in her voice, the same tone she had used before when she was trying to manipulate me into doing what she wanted. Mila, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. I was wondering when you'd finally call me. Mom, I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. We need to talk. This has gone far enough. There was a long pause on the other end. I could almost hear her trying to come up with a defense, trying to find a way to turn the conversation back in her favor. But I wasn't going to let her. I'm not going to let you manipulate me anymore, I continued. You've crossed a line and I'm done. I'm married now, and Tyler and I are building a life together. If you can't accept that, then I'm done trying to please you. I'm not asking for your approval anymore, and I'm not going to let you control me any longer. For a moment, she didn't say anything. And then, almost as if she was caught off guard, she spoke, her voice cracking slightly. You don't understand, Mila. I'm doing this because I love you. I'm trying to protect you. No, you're not, I shot back. You're doing this because you're trying to control me. And I'm not going to let you. The silence between my mother and I hung thick in the air after my words. She had always been the master of manipulating situations, of playing the victim when she needed to. But this time, I wasn't buying it. I wasn't going to let her tear apart my life just because it didn't fit into the mold she had created for me. You've made a huge mistake, Mila, she finally said, her voice trembling with a mixture of frustration and disbelief. You've always been so headstrong, but this time you've gone too far. You think Tyler is the answer to everything, but you don't know him the way I do. He's not the man you think he is. I clenched my fists, the anger inside me bubbling up once again. Mom, you don't get it. You don't get me anymore. This isn't about Tyler or some mistake. It's about me living my life on my own terms. I'm not a child anymore, and I don't need you to protect me. I've made my choice, and I'm asking you to respect it. I could feel the tension building on the other end of the line. She was furious, but she was also losing control, something she hadn't experienced in years, and it felt empowering in a strange, unexpected way. I had always been the one to yield to her will, to apologize for things I hadn't even done. But not anymore. This was the moment where I was finally taking charge of my own destiny, where I was no longer bound by her expectations. But even as I stood firm, a small part of me still wished things could be different. I wanted my family's approval. I wanted them to understand. But I knew deep down that I couldn't keep living my life for them. If they couldn't accept my choices, then that was their problem, not mine. You'll regret this, Mila, she said, her voice cold and final. You'll see, one day, you'll realize that you've lost everything because of him. Her words were like daggers, but they didn't hurt as much as they used to. I had heard that kind of thing from her before, the endless predictions of doom and disaster. It was always the same, always designed to make me doubt myself. But I wasn't going to doubt myself anymore. Maybe I will regret some things, Mom, I said, my voice steady. But I won't regret standing up for myself. I won't regret living my own life, even if that means I have to do it without your approval. There was a long pause on the other end. My mother was silent, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was begging for her to love me or accept me. I had accepted myself, and that was enough. Finally, my mother spoke again, her voice quieter, almost defeated. I just want you to be happy, Mila. But I can't change the way I feel. I can't just pretend that everything is okay. I nodded, even though I knew she couldn't see me. I know, Mom, and I'm sorry it has to be this way. But I'm doing what's best for me. I'm not asking for your permission anymore. I'm asking for your respect. There was no response. I waited for a few moments, hoping for something more, hoping for her to finally say something that made me believe she might come around. But nothing came. After a moment of silence, I heard her exhale softly. Goodbye, Mila, she said, her voice heavy with emotion. I didn't say anything back. I just hung up the phone. The finality of it settled in. It was done. I had done everything I could to salvage our relationship, to make her understand. But it wasn't enough. She wasn't ready to let go of control, and I wasn't ready to give it to her anymore. And that was something I had to accept. I sat on the edge of the bed for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling over me. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't what I had wanted, but I knew deep down that I had done the right thing. I had taken back control of my life, and now I was free. Free to live my life the way I wanted to, without being tethered to my family's expectations. Tyler came over to me, sitting beside me on the bed, his arm wrapped around my shoulders, pulling me close. I leaned into him, grateful for his support, his love, and his unwavering belief in me. "You did the right thing, Mila," he whispered. "You're strong, and no matter what happens next, we'll face it together." I nodded, my heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and relief. He was right. This was just the beginning, and the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But for the first time, I felt ready to face whatever came next. I had taken back control, and no one, not even my family, could take that from me. The days that followed felt like a strange mix of freedom and uncertainty. I had cut ties with my family, but the weight of those decisions still lingered. I was finally living my life on my terms, but I knew the road ahead wasn't going to be easy. My family wasn't going to just accept my choices and let things go. I had made that clear to them, but they were still my family. They were still the people who had shaped me, who had loved me in their own way, even if that love had been controlling and manipulative. Tyler and I spent our first few months of marriage in a kind of blissful bubble, untouched by the chaos that had surrounded us before. It was just the two of us, building our life, our future. We talked about our dreams, our hopes, and we made plans for the future. But even in the quiet moments, there was always that nagging feeling in the back of my mind. The knowledge that my family was still out there, still judging, still trying to tear us apart. One day, about 6 months after the wedding, I got a call from my mother. I had been avoiding her calls, but something about this one made me pick up. The tone in her voice was different. It wasn't cold, and it wasn't filled with anger or manipulation. It was almost apologetic. "Mila?" she began, her voice shaky. "I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened, and I need to say something." My heart started racing. Was this it? Was she finally ready to accept me? To accept my choices? I didn't know if I was ready for this, but I knew I had to hear her out. "I don't agree with everything you've done, and I don't think I ever will," she continued. "But I realize now that I've been trying to control you, and that's not right. I'm your mother, and I should support you, even if I don't always understand your decisions." I sat in stunned silence for a moment, trying to process what she had just said. This wasn't the apology I had been expecting. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, a step in the right direction. "I've always loved you, Mila," she added softly, "and I want you to know that no matter what, I'm here for you." A lump formed in my throat. It wasn't the closure I had hoped for, but it was the peace I needed. My mother wasn't perfect, but she was trying, and that was more than I had expected from her. It wasn't going to be easy to rebuild our relationship, but I knew it could be done, one step at a time. "I know, Mom," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "And I love you too." The conversation ended with an unspoken understanding. It wasn't the fairy tale reconciliation I had imagined, but it was real. And that was enough. I wasn't going to force things with my family anymore. If they were truly ready to accept me for who I was, they would. And if not, I had already learned how to live without their approval. The rest of the year passed in a blur of work, new experiences, and quiet moments of happiness. Tyler and I built our life together, and although the past still lingered, it no longer held the power it once had. We had our future to look forward to, and for the first time, I truly believed that I was free. As I sit here now, looking back on everything that happened, I've realized something important. The hardest battles are often the ones we fight within ourselves. Standing up for yourself isn't easy. It means making difficult choices, even when it feels like you're going to lose everything. But it's worth it, because in the end, the only person you can truly count on is yourself. I've learned that living for others will only leave you empty. The moment you start living for yourself, for your own happiness, you'll find the strength you didn't know you had. The road won't always be smooth, but it will be yours. And that's the only road that truly matters. Don't let anyone control your life. Stand up for what you believe in and take back control of your future. If you've enjoyed Mila's story and want to see more stories of strength, courage, and standing up for what you believe in, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next empowering story. Remember, your happiness is worth fighting for.